I was 7 months pregnant when my husband stood by the window and watched. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched his stepfather raise a hand toward me, and something inside me broke that had nothing to do with my body. My name is Naomi, and for 3 years I believed I had married a good man. I believed silence meant safety. I was wrong on both counts. Let me take you back to the beginning, back before the nursery was painted yellow, back before I knew what my husband was truly capable of not doing. I met Daniel at a mutual friend's wedding. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who pulled out chairs and remembered how you took your coffee. My mother liked him instantly. "He listens," she said. "That's rare." She wasn't wrong. Daniel listened to everyone, except I would learn the people who mattered least to him were often the ones who needed him most. We married 18 months later. Small wedding. Big dreams. I thought I understood his family, his mother, Carol, sharp-tongued but harmless, I assumed, and his stepfather, Russell, a man who filled a room the way a storm fills a sky. Loud, heavy, impossible to ignore. I noticed things early. The way Daniel's shoulders dropped when Russell walked in. The way conversations changed direction the moment his stepfather raised his voice. But love has a strange way of editing memory. I told myself it was just family dynamics. Every family has them, right? Wrong. By the time I found out I was pregnant, we had been living 2 streets away from Carol and Russell for almost a year. Convenient, Daniel said. Family should be close, he said. I didn't argue. I wanted this baby to grow up surrounded by people who loved her. I didn't yet understand that proximity to Russell was not the same as safety. The pregnancy announcement should have been joyful, and for a moment it was. Daniel cried when he saw the test. Actual tears, the kind that make you believe forever is possible. He kissed my stomach like it was sacred ground. For a few weeks, I let myself believe we were untouchable. Then came the Sunday dinners. Carol commented on everything, my weight gain, my hormonal mood swings, whether I was really ready to be a mother. I brushed it off, mostly. Words are words. I told myself I could survive words. Russell was different. Russell didn't comment. Russell watched. There's a specific kind of silence that makes your skin crawl, a silence that isn't peaceful but calculating. Russell had that silence. He'd stare at me across the dinner table like he was measuring something, deciding something, and every time I caught his eyes, I felt this cold drop in my stomach that had nothing to do with the baby. I mentioned it to Daniel once, in bed in the dark, when confessions feel safer. "Your stepfather makes me uncomfortable," I whispered. Daniel exhaled, long and tired. "He's just old school, doesn't mean anything by it." He watches me like I'm a problem to be solved. "Naomi, he's harmless, trust me." I wanted to trust him. I wanted, so badly, for my husband's word to be a fortress I could stand inside. I didn't yet know that fortresses built on denial collapse the moment weight is placed on them. The incident, the one that changed everything, happened on a Thursday evening in October. Rain against the windows, the kind of steady rain that makes a house feel smaller than it is. We were at Carol and Russell's for what was supposed to be a simple dinner. Pot roast, small talk, nothing unusual. Until Russell started drinking, not a little, a lot. By the second hour, his voice had grown jagged at the edges, the way voices do right before they turn into something else entirely. He was arguing with Daniel about money, some old resentment about Daniel not helping enough with Carol's expenses. I sat quietly, hands resting on my belly, praying the storm would pass without touching me. It didn't. Somewhere in the argument, Russell turned toward me. His eyes weren't measuring anymore. They were furious. "You," he said, voice thick with liquor and something darker. "You're the reason he doesn't have time for his own family anymore. You and that." He gestured toward my stomach like it was an object, not a life. "That thing you're carrying." I froze. My hands instinctively wrapped tighter around my belly, some ancient maternal reflex kicking in before my mind even caught up. "Russell," I said, voice shaking, "please don't." He moved fast. Faster than a man his size should move. And before I could step back, before Daniel could even rise fully from his chair, Russell's hand connected with my stomach. I don't need to describe the pain in detail. You already feel it, don't you? You already know what that moment does to a mother's body and her mind at once. The way the world narrows to a single point of terror, the way every thought becomes one word: baby. I collapsed into the chair behind me, gasping, both hands pressed against my belly like I could somehow shield what was already struck. And Daniel stood there. He stood there, frozen, eyes wide, mouth slightly open like he wanted to speak but couldn't remember how. 3 seconds, maybe 4, an eternity measured in his stillness. Carol's voice cut through the ringing in my ears, sharp and venomous in a way I will never forget as long as I live. "Hit her again," she said, not screamed, said calm as ordering coffee. "Maybe then she'll understand her place in this family." The room tilted. I looked at my husband, the father of the child inside me, the man who had cried at a pregnancy test, and I waited. I waited for him to move, to shout, to do anything that proved he was on my side of this world. He took a step, not toward me, toward Russell. For one impossible heartbeat, I thought he was going to intervene, going to finally become the man I needed him to be. Instead, he grabbed Russell's arm, gently, almost apologetically, and said the words that shattered whatever was left of my heart. "Dad, come on, man. You're drunk. Let's calm down, okay? Everybody just needs to calm down. Calm down. Not you hit my pregnant wife. Not get away from her. Calm down, as if this was an inconvenience, a disagreement over politics, not violence against the mother of his unborn child." I don't remember standing up. I don't remember reaching the door. I remember the rain, cold against my face, and I remember running, as much as a 7 months pregnant woman can run toward my car, toward anywhere that wasn't that house. Behind me, I heard Daniel's voice calling my name, not urgent, not desperate, almost annoyed like I was overreacting to something minor. I got into the car. I locked the doors. And for the first time since I'd said, "I do," I understood with a clarity that felt like drowning that the man I married was never going to protect me. Not against his family, maybe not against anything at all. My phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. "Where are you going? Don't make this a bigger deal than it is." Bigger deal than it is. I sat there in the driver's seat, hands trembling on the wheel, tears mixing with rainwater on my cheeks, and I whispered to the empty car, to my daughter, to whoever might be listening in that darkness. "I'm going to protect you, even if no one else will." I didn't know yet how far I would have to go to keep that promise. I didn't know that this night wasn't the end of the nightmare. It was only the beginning. The rain hadn't stopped by the time I reached my sister's apartment. I sat in her driveway for almost 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside, both hands still pressed to my belly, still whispering to a baby who couldn't understand words yet, but who I hoped, somehow, could feel that she was safe now. My sister, Renee, opened the door before I even knocked. One look at my face and she knew. "What happened?" she said, not a question, a demand. I told her, all of it. The dinner, the argument, Russell's hand, Carol's voice telling him to do it again, and Daniel standing there, then walking toward his stepfather instead of toward me. Renee's face went through something I'd never seen before. Shock, then fury, then a terrible, quiet stillness. "You're not going back there," she said. "Renee, he's my husband." "He watched a man hit you while you were pregnant, Naomi. He watched it happen, and then he comforted the man who did it." Her voice cracked on the last words. "That's not a husband. I don't know what that is, but it's not a husband." I didn't sleep that night. I lay on her couch with my hand on my stomach, feeling for movement, terrified of stillness, terrified of what stillness might mean. Somewhere around 3 a.m, I felt her kick. A small, stubborn, furious kick, like she was telling me she was still here, still fighting. I cried harder than I had all night, out of relief, out of grief, out of something I didn't have a name for yet. The next morning, I went to the hospital, not because I doubted my daughter's strength, but because a mother doesn't take chances, not after a night like that. The doctor was kind, careful, thorough. She listened to the heartbeat first, strong and steady, and something in my chest finally loosened. Baby's heart rate looks good, she said. Strong, no signs of distress on the monitor. She paused, studying my face the way doctors do when they're deciding how much to ask. Do you want to tell me what happened? I told her. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just nodded slowly and reached for a folder on the counter. I'm required to document this, she said gently. And I want you to know you have options, resources, people whose entire job is helping women in situations like this one. I took the folder. I didn't know yet that I would need it more than I could imagine. Daniel called 11 times that day. I let every single one go to voicemail. By the 12th call, I finally answered, not because I wanted to, but because some tired, aching part of me still needed to hear him explain himself. Still needed him to make it make sense. Naomi, thank God, he said, breathless. Where are you? Are you okay? Is the baby? The baby's fine, I said flatly. No thanks to your family. Silence on the line. Then, look, I know last night was bad, but Dad was drunk, he didn't mean. He hit me, Daniel. My voice shook, but I kept going. He hit me, and your mother told him to do it again, and you walked toward him. Not me, him. I was trying to diffuse the situation. By comforting him. Another silence, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted, defensive now instead of pleading. You don't understand what it's like managing him, Naomi. You don't know how many years I've spent trying to keep the peace in that house. And what about keeping peace in mine? What about keeping me and your daughter safe? He didn't answer that. He didn't answer that, and in the silence that followed, I understood something I would spend the next several weeks trying not to understand. He had a hierarchy, and I was not at the top of it. I stayed at Renee's for the following week. Daniel texted daily, apologies mixed with justifications, love mixed with excuses, a confusing tangle of words that all seemed to circle the same center. Forgive me, but also understand him. I didn't go back. Instead, I met with a lawyer, a woman named Patricia, sharp-eyed and unhurried, who listened to my story without interrupting, then folded her hands and said, You did the right thing leaving. Now let's talk about protecting you and your daughter, legally and permanently. We filed for a protective order against Russell. We began the paperwork for separation from Daniel. Patricia explained, gently but firmly, that Daniel's failure to intervene, his choice to comfort the man who struck me rather than protect me, could matter, legally and otherwise, in ways I hadn't considered. It mattered for custody. It mattered for safety. It mattered, most of all, for the truth of who he really was underneath the man I thought I'd married. Daniel showed up at Renee's door on a Tuesday evening, uninvited, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. Please, he said the moment I opened the door, just talk to me. 5 minutes. I gave him 5 minutes, standing on the porch, arms crossed over the belly that held our daughter. I've thought about that night every hour since it happened, he said. I froze. I know I froze. Nobody's ever hit someone I loved in front of me before. I didn't know what to do. You knew what to do, I said quietly. You just didn't do it. There's a difference, Daniel. I'm sorry. I believe you're sorry. I don't believe you're changed. I met his eyes, steady, though my heart was breaking all over again. You chose him. In the moment that mattered most, you chose him over me and over your daughter. I can't build a family with someone who does that. He cried. I won't pretend that didn't hurt to watch. Some part of me, the part that remembered the pregnancy test, the tears, the kisses against my stomach, still loved him. Grief doesn't disappear just because clarity arrives. But love without protection isn't safety. And I had learned, in the cruelest way possible, exactly how little his love could shield me from. The months that followed were not easy. Custody discussions, legal proceedings, Carol calling Renee's phone at odd hours, alternating between guilt trips and thinly veiled threats, until Patricia sent a formal letter putting an end to that. Russell was charged, not with anything that reflects the full weight of what happened. The legal system rarely captures pain in proportion to the moment, but charged nonetheless. A public record, a consequence, small but real. I gave birth on a cold morning in February. My daughter, Alina, arrived with a full head of dark hair and a cry so strong the nurses laughed, said she clearly had opinions about the world already. Renee was in the room, holding my hand, tears streaming down both our faces. Daniel wasn't there. I hadn't invited him. He met Alina 2 weeks later, under supervised conditions Patricia had arranged, his hands trembling as he held his daughter for the first time. I watched his face soften completely, watched something in him crack open with love and regret intertwined so tightly, I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She is," I said, "and she deserves better than what you showed her mother that night." He nodded, unable to argue, unable to defend the indefensible. I won't tell you the following years were simple. Co-parenting with a man whose failure had once endangered our child is not a wound that fully closes. Daniel worked eventually to become present in ways he hadn't been. That Thursday night therapy, distance from Russell, real effort. I won't say it erased what happened. I won't say I fully forgave it. But I built a life, a stable one, for Alina and myself, one where no one's hand ever came near her without love behind it. Some evenings, when Alina is asleep and the house is quiet, I still think about that dinner table, the rain against the windows, Carol's voice saying those 4 words that revealed exactly who she was. And I think about the space between Russell's hand moving and Daniel's feet moving, toward the wrong person entirely. That space taught me something I carry with me still. Love that doesn't protect you when it matters most was never really love strong enough to keep you safe. It was only love convenient enough to enjoy when nothing threatened it. I chose my daughter that night, in the rain, in the driver's seat of my car, hands shaking on the wheel. I have never once regretted that choice. And every time I watch Alina laugh, fierce, loud, unafraid, I know I made the only choice that ever truly mattered.